I've been doing tech recruitment for over 10 years now. I started at Nigel Frank International about 10 years ago, which eventually become the Frank Recruitment Group under the sort of different brands that they have there. My first sort of role was building a market from scratch. So I went there as a sort of trainee, worked my way up to consultant, senior consultant level. Was offered the opportunity to launch a new brand and go and build a market again as like a team leader. But I really wanted to learn sort of contract recruitment. The way they were structured back then was that the perm business was in the north, in Newcastle, where the group was founded, and the guys in London done all the contract stuff. So I wanted to learn contract. So I left for another company up in the northeast, and learned contract in about sort of 6 months, and started billing there, and just really enjoyed it. It was just more stylistically for me, it just kind of suited. And when I left the Frank Group, I left on really good terms. My now wife sort of still works there. That's where we met. And I had the opportunity to return there and start a contract division from Newcastle. So I did that, and within 9 months, I had like 20 trainee recruitment consultants reporting into me. It was just insane. It was like a hyper growth model that they were operating at the time. Over the years, I then decided I wanted to do the US market. That was where all the sort of biggest billers were, and I just didn't have the opportunity to do it unless I'd relocated. So after a sort of few years, the way COVID had changed the game a little bit, I left the Frank Group and I went to another company and founded a Blockchain and Web3 division for them. And it was, to be honest, it was the first market I actually worked on. I just really, really enjoyed. I enjoyed how closely tied it was with current affairs. It was quite disruptive. It was challenging the status quo a little bit. So I decided to found the Frederick Stanley Group, which is named after both sort of mine and my wife's late grandfathers. And our goal is to partner with blockchain and Web3 businesses that are looking for top talent and looking to scale and grow quite aggressively and quickly. Even when I left my last company, I still wasn't fully decided that it was actually the route I was going to go down. So this is only the latter part of last year. I had 3 months gardening leave from sort of late September, October, which covered Christmas and also the World Cup. So to be honest, it was a great time for me. But within sort of days of leaving, I just speculatively approached a couple of the biggest sort of blockchain specific recruitment companies out there. One in particular was a subsidiary of Coin Bureau, the YouTube channel, which is, they've got millions of subscribers. They're the go-to channel for any sort of crypto content and stuff like that. So I interviewed with them, and they was going to bring me in as the managing director for tech. And sort of quite weirdly, every role that I applied for, I was offered the position. I was extremely flattered. And that included working remotely for in-house as well as like the VP of TA for some really big crypto, blockchain and Web3 tech companies in the US. But for some reason, and to this day, I still don't know what it was, but obviously I found it on my own, so this is probably it. Just a gut instinct, nothing really excited me. And I sort of sat down with my wife and we spoke about it. And she went away for a business trip, and I took the dog. We went hiking up Scarfell Pike in the Lake District. And as I was hiking up there, I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to found my own business. And then obviously I just started to speak to a few people from there and decided to put all the sort of procedures in place to go and found my own business. And then I ended up finding RecruitHub. The offers that I got were like, they were really exciting. Obviously, some of the US salaries are huge, and some of the companies are offering like equity in a business. But where kind of my niche as a recruiter, not just the markets that I work in, but my niche on a personal level is every role I've had, I've gone in and I've built something from scratch, and I've done it countless times. Well, countless, about 7 or 8 times, but that's quite a lot. And every time the divisions have gone on to be quite successful. So I had that kind of doubt in my mind, like, oh yeah, but I'm going to go and do it myself. There's loads of things I don't know about the business side that I just hadn't had the opportunity to learn. No one's kind of developed or mentored me in that respect, whether it be marketing, back office, finance and things like that. But it was the sort of the missing piece of the puzzle. It was the only bit I kind of hadn't done. I've done permanent recruitment. I've done contract recruitment. I've recruited globally, worldwide. I've worked on an RPO before and things like that. So I've done quite a bit, but I just wasn't really learning. And I felt that going into another business and building another brand for somebody and, you know, making them a lot of money, I just thought to myself, well, what if I do it myself? You know, there is obviously a risk element involved in it. But in the end, it all just fell into place at the right time. I got married last year. My wife and I haven't got any kids yet, and they say that there's never like the right time, but it just genuinely was the right time to jump ship and do it. So I sought guidance, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people I've worked with that I've always kept good relationships with, that I kind of sought out and spoke to. I spoke to a guy called Steve Rawlinson, who's the CEO of the Samuel Knight Group, who I've worked with quite closely before, and he was just like, mate, just do it. I spoke with another guy called Nathan Brooks, who's a director at the Frank Group, who's, I've worked with him closely. He sort of managed and mentored my wife through her career as well, up to managing 100 odd people at the Frank Group, and he was just like, look, you're silly if you don't, kind of thing. So every single person, whether it be a friend, a previous colleague, they all said it wasn't a great time because the tech layoffs had started, but they said, at this time, you just need to do it. You need to do it for you and create something for yourself. So they kind of just give me a little bit of extra a confidence boost as such, to actually go out and start exploring what options were there. Because outside of applying for a senior role within a recruitment company, or going in as like a VP of talent acquisition or something, the starting of, I didn't know where to start. To start your own business, I genuinely didn't know where to start. So I just sought some guidance and got some really helpful advice. So I know a lot of people that have set up on their own, and some have been very successful. Some have grown like sort of major companies and major brands. But a lot of them had to give up either like a major stake, or some had to have a huge pot of cash to go and finance it themselves. So you're either not owning a business outright, or in sort of full control, or you're betting your life savings on something which even now I was willing to do it, and I had a sort of bit of a chunk of capital that I could found a business with. I could have done both. I could have given up equity and founded, or I could have put my own money in and founded. But I ended up speaking to, it was like a rec to rec in the US, but he helps people found their own companies and operate in the US. And he put me in touch with RecruitHub, and Edmund specifically. And then once I'd spoken to, I think there's about 4 or 5 people who would either invest in me or take a chunk of equity out of the business, I had a call with Edmund, and he was just really clear and succinct on how it worked, how they operate. And then I checked some of the backgrounds of some of the founders that RecruitHub already had. And it was really good people, come from some good companies that I know. And at that time, I just thought, okay, well, this could be the one for me. So I buy into people massively, and I always go kind of with my gut instinct. So after Edmund and I had an initial call, I'd done a further deep dive into the way the agreement was structured, which was quite attractive to me. I'd done my due diligence on other founders in the group that have founded via RecruitHub, sort of what and how they operate, their backgrounds, and it was pretty clear that they partnered with some really cool people who had come from some good companies that I know. Some were like my competitors, so it was obvious that they partnered with good people. So I thought, well, I'm good people, so that's why I decided to do it. Well, I mean, when I done the financial projections with Simon, and we were discussing options and directions that I could go and take the business in, I kind of realised that being in full strategic control and having the options to grow and scale the business as I see fit, or have it as a lifestyle business as well, I realised that there's no more answering to people who maybe have a different agenda to me, who won't take the time to develop or mentor me, which was what I was really craving on the business side. So I thought, if I don't need to rely on somebody else to put that time and investment into me, I'm just going to put it into myself. And I'm only a couple of months in at the minute, but it just based on what I've achieved so far, it's definitely the right move for me. So, I mean, outside of obviously being an experienced recruiter, I mentioned sort of earlier in the call, my niche as a consultant is the ability to build and build on new markets. So the tech stack itself has allowed me to build and sort of automate a few things that are quite time consuming. So my processes are streamlined. I work on like, I'm very regimented in terms of like, I need structure to my day, and it provided that. So, I mean, just to give you an example, my client and candidate database is already bigger than my previous company's database that I built. And that was before I'd even launched. So that was just the data that I was able to add in January. I was able to sort of import bulk contacts and not just sit there manually adding each candidate and each contact to my CRM. And the fact that I think some recruitment companies still work like that, it's sort of astounded me how the bigger firms haven't caught on yet, because I've done more work in a month to build a database than I did at 18 months at my previous company. So it was a bit eye-opening for me, to be honest with you. And as obviously time goes on, when I start making hires myself, I'll be able to build their markets for them. So, when they're serving a notice period at their previous company and they come and join me, from day one, they will be able to be productive. They will be able to speak to clients, speak to candidates, and start recruiting essentially from day one. And that is impressive, because there's no ramp up time. And that the first 2 or 3 months when you go into a new role, that's sometimes a really frustrating period when you're trying to get stuff going. There's none of that anymore. That's gone. That's a thing of the past. So back office and everything has been great. Most of my interaction has been with Valeria, who has been outstanding. Like, if I'd have launched solo, there would have been so many days that had just been like waiting for certain things, little snags, teething problems that you're going to have, training on certain tech products, support on those products when you start using them. And she's just been so proactive. And then recently I've started sort of interacting a bit more with Teresa, and she's been great, and new additions to the business like Holly. And I mean, Holly's had an immediate impact in sort of getting other founders on calls. We're obviously sharing wins, ideas, and any recruitment-based frustrations that we have. So even though I'm a sole founder, I know a lot of other founders have co-founded with sort of previous colleagues or friends, etc. But even as a sole founder, you still feel like you're part of a community as well. So as the RecruitHub back office team grows, that's only going to get better. But for me, like, the onboarding and how I kicked off has been great. I genuinely can't fault it. So obviously it's getting sort of fully up and running and billing. I've got plenty of processes going on at the minute. It's all sort of really started to kick off in the last month, or the month of March. February was a bit tough, just kind of getting up to speed with everything as well once I'd launched. I've moved into an office, as you can see, which for me, I was a work from home advocate, but getting up and getting out and getting into an office has been an absolute game changer for me. So for me, getting some new hires in is very important, and then scaling with sort of some graduates or some junior consultants would be fantastic. And then I'll be looking at sort of bigger office space as well. And as that grows, going out into some other markets. So, I mean, ultimately, I want to operate in 3 key markets. I want to obviously carry on sort of building and developing the blockchain and Web3 division. It's just a fantastic growth area. Like I said, I do enjoy it. There's always new languages and frameworks popping up, and seeing what people are developing and the projects that they're doing is just really interesting and cool. It keeps you very busy, just keeping on top of the like the market knowledge, which I really enjoy. Outside of that, obviously AI is not just a buzzword anymore. With Chat GPT launching and what that's doing for sort of content and branding and stuff, I see that as a huge growth area. And in the gaming / sort of metaverse, there's a slight crossover in all of those techs in terms of the software languages that they're developed in. So I'd like to obviously grow the US division, and then launch a UK and EMEA division, and then launch an APAC division, and just be global across those 3 markets. That's the ultimate vision for the business. If you're a good recruiter and you're a good performer in a business, and you know how to sort of build a market, like don't worry about all the other things, the finance, the marketing, the website, the tech. Like, RecruitHub have got a platform that will upskill you in all of that, so you don't have to worry, and they are there to support you day to day. So if you're genuinely thinking about it and you're in a position to do it, you don't need to have 50 grand saved up or anything like that. You don't have to take a huge risk. So if you're thinking about doing it, genuinely, just go and do it. I would say, look, don't doubt yourself, back yourself. Being in like a positive discomfort sort of place is good for growth in your own development. So don't doubt yourself. If you're thinking about doing it, go and do it. Sort of secondly, yes, it is hard, but if you can mirror what you're currently doing as a decent performer in any agency, and you bill half of what you've done in your best ever year, you're infinitely better off in terms of what you can pay yourself and how you can grow and scale your business, and what you can get out of it benefits wise. So, yes, it is hard, but it is also a lot more worthwhile. They say in recruitment, you only get out what you put in terms of, like, your work, but most people are giving away 70% plus of their billings to a company and getting 30% or below in terms of commission. It's a completely different game when you're a founder and you set up on your own. So yeah, it is hard, but it is definitely worth it. And then I suppose, lastly, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. The worst case scenario here is if it doesn't work out for any reason, you're a bit older, you're a bit wiser, and you can go back into agency recruitment. But if you pick the right market and you work hard, you'll be absolutely fine.